We just had a minor snafu on our very first BLC live event where we clicked the record button or clicked the live and it was like, oh, no, we're just going to connect. And I completely face-palmed on that one. Sorry about that. If there's anybody watching, I'm not sure anybody actually is.
Oh, okay. I see we have 2 people, but I can't see who it is yet. So thank you for joining us.
And you're one of them.
I love the love and support for BLC. Thank you. Well, first of all, we're going to start off today with just a bear with us because this is our first live event. We have happy hours every Friday afternoon, but this is the first time that we're doing happy hour live. So bear with us. We're going to try to do this a little bit more regularly moving forward for our friends who can't join us in person. And this month, we're going to talk about NC Beer Month. October is NC Beer Month, and I'm going to turn it over to John to talk a little bit more about what that means and the proclamation coming from Governor Cooper.
Okay. So first, let me back up and say, one, I've pre-gamed about the last hour or so. I've already had 2 nice North Carolina beers. Went through Bad Penny from Big Boss and working on a, this I think is the Not Another New England IPA from Raleigh Brewing. And we've got a whole cooler of North Carolina beer down here we're going to hopefully go through pretty quickly. Also, if you haven't been paying attention to us on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or our website, well then you just haven't been paying attention. But beyond that, if you haven't met her yet, this is Brooks. Brooks Savage. She's our most recent addition to Beer Law Center. She has taken over all of our trademark and business work and letting me concentrate a little bit more on federal and ABC compliance. And she'll be taking over that as we move along as well. I'm really glad to have Brooks here. And apparently providing a lot of much needed structure in my life here because otherwise this wouldn't happen. All right, so let's talk about North Carolina Beer Month. October is North Carolina Beer Month. We're really happy about that for obvious reasons, right? It's beer, it's October, we finally have some nice temperature changes. It actually feels like fall as opposed to some previous years where it's 90 degrees still in October. But this is, I believe, our 2nd or 3rd year now where October is North Carolina Beer Month. Previous to that, we actually had April as North Carolina Beer Month. We moved it to the fall, or it was moved to the fall, would be the better way to put that, in October, pretty much commensurate with COVID. And Governor Cooper is expected to do one of his traditional proclamations that October is North Carolina Craft Beer Month. He has done that every year for at least the last 9 years. I think the 10th anniversary is coming up shortly. I wasn't sure what was going on behind camera here, but there was definitely a lot of activity.
Things unrelated to what you're doing.
Right. All right. So we are coming up on some pretty momentous milestones in the history of North Carolina, the history of beer in North Carolina. Specifically, we're coming up on in 2025 is the 20th anniversary of Pop the Cap in North Carolina. If you're a recent craft beer devotee, you may not remember this, but some of us who've been around since Sanskrit was a written language, North Carolina beer has not always been as vibrant and interesting as it is now. Previous to 2005, we were limited to 4 or 5% beer. Back in 2005, 2006, an enormous campaign kind of kicked off, and it was called Pop the Cap, right? We increased the allowable alcohol content in craft beer and beer in general, and it really led to the blossoming and blooming of craft beer in North Carolina. Real shout out here to Sean Wilson from Full Steam Brewery, extremely active in that, one of my craft beer heroes. Really was at the forefront and did a lot of lobbying and effort to make that happen. And you may know Sean Wilson because he's now one of the owners of Full Steam, right? One of those wonderful breweries here in the Triangle area, focusing on local and especially hyper-local beers. You may know Full Steam's Carver Ale, which is made with North Carolina sweet potatoes, for example. So that was 2005. Let's take a step back even further. Back in 1985, Uli Benowitz and Uli is a character. If you've not met Uli, go to one of our industry events. Uli will probably be there. He is a fantastic guy, but definitely a character. And Uli came to the United States and decided to open a brewery, and he kind of operated, and I hope he'll appreciate this, he operated on the theory of, I didn't know I couldn't do that. And so he came to North Carolina, wanted to open a brew pub, and was the impetus in North Carolina for getting the law changed to allow brew pubs and small breweries. And that is what started with Weeping Radish. Weeping Radish started as a brewery in 1985. The first microbrewery brew pub in North Carolina. It's still going strong. Uli recently stepped back from operations and actually sold a majority interest in the business. He is still staying on, as I understand it, as an advisor, consultant, but he's brought in a new principal owner. So we hope to see a reinvigoration or taking Weeping Radish to the next level. It'll have them going for the next 20, 30 years as one of the scions of North Carolina craft beer. So a couple of other things I want to talk about, just kind of rounding out the idea of North Carolina Craft Beer Month, or North Carolina Beer Month. You may have heard, if you were a member of the North Carolina Craft Brewers Guild, and if you're not, you should be. They have enthusiast members, they have associate and ancillary members, as well as brewery members, so join up if you're not already a member. But the North Carolina Craft Brewers Guild, their tagline is the state of Southern beer. And that may sound kind of cheesy, but there's really some heart behind that. North Carolina, well, we all know, I hope we all know, the 21st Amendment repealed Prohibition back in 1930. And North Carolina, interestingly enough, was one of, I think, 2 states who actually refused to entertain the idea of ratifying the amendment. They would not hold They would not hold a constitutional convention. They would not even put this to a vote at the legislative or public level as to whether or not we would allow alcohol sales in North Carolina. North Carolina was a hardcore prohibitionist state, and so post-prohibition, North Carolina was pulled kicking and screaming into having to sell alcohol, or at least allow the sale of alcohol. That's why, for example, we're a control state. The state of North Carolina controls the wholesale level of sales and some retail level of sales of distilled spirits, for example. That's why all the state ABC stores you see they're state owned, and they're little nondescript buildings with not a lot of point of sale merchandise and not a lot of flash advertising. Whereas you go down to Florida and there's point of sale stuff and there's the inflatable guy waving his arms out front. It's a whole different experience. But North Carolina is much more staid, much more reserved than that. Now, fast forward to 2005 and later, and popping the cap, North Carolina has become one of the most innovative, one of the most, I hesitate using this word, but beer-friendly states in the Southeast. Other states in the Southeast, South Carolina, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, even Tennessee, look at North Carolina as a model for how we grow the craft beer industry to focus on local sustainability. How do we encourage local investment? How do we encourage premium products and encourage responsible enjoyment? And North Carolina, from that standpoint, in the Southeast, is a shining star. We don't have as many breweries as some other states. We don't have as free of laws or as much freedom as some other states provide alcohol producers or sellers. But here in the Bible Belt, we're doing pretty good. One of the examples, I've got a couple of statistics here in front of me you might find interesting. So North Carolina has over 400 breweries or breweries in planning right now. And in 22, that is incredible. Having done this for 10 plus years now and being a craft beer drinker before that, back in 2005, I think there were 7 breweries in the entire state. And that included like Miller Coors out in, their large facility out west. So to be at 400 plus now, with the vast majority of those being small, independently owned, local and sustainable operations, that is just really exciting in my mind. So we've got 400 plus. We are in a second or so place behind Florida, who has over 500 breweries. But here's the key. Florida has a little over 21 million people in the state, and they've got 500 breweries. North Carolina only has a little over 10 million, and we have more than 400. So half the population, 80% as many breweries. So per capita, that's pretty damn good. We've got apparently a much higher value for that kind of product, that artisanal creativity, and willing to pay for it and support our local friends, family, and colleagues that do this for a living. So that's really fun in my mind, really exciting for me. Speaking of per capita, this is one of the other ones that I thought was kind of interesting. We are actually not that drunk of a state, honestly. Out of all 50 states, we're 30th in per capita beer consumption. North Carolina actually only consumes about 26 gallons of beer per capita. That's a lot. We're number 30 again, so that's a lot less than a lot of other states. And we still have this amazing, thriving industry here in North Carolina, which tells me, one, we're willing to pay for a premium product. We're willing to pay for the stories and support local. And we're apparently willing to enjoy responsibly, because we're clearly paying, we're supporting an industry, but we're not going to the race to the bottom, right? Most of our beer being sold, or a lot of our beer being sold, may be Coors Light, Miller Lite, these light beers that have their place, the lawnmower beers. But clearly, there's a role here for craft beer that is something special. And that's, again, very exciting for me, because it says we've got something sustainable, we're in a special spot, and it makes me really proud to be here in North Carolina. Let me see, make sure I hit all my notes here. Oh, around that section, around that point. So if you look at the economic impact for craft beer in North Carolina, it looks like it's around $2.2 billion of direct economic impact of beer in North Carolina. And that only counts the breweries. I say the breweries. That counts the breweries and the alcohol sellers. That does not count all the other ancillary and associated industries, all the beer distribution network, the drivers, the folks who work on cleaning tap lines, the construction that supports new breweries, even the automotive industry that supplies the trucks and fleets for getting all this beer around, even locally. When you look at all of those other supported industries, growing hops, growing barley, we're even seeing more of that here in North Carolina. We've got craft maltsters here in North Carolina that we did not have 10 or 15 years ago. So we're seeing a lot more of that stuff. And when you include those ancillary industries, the last study I saw, and that's been probably 8 or 9 years ago, the last study I saw said that the total economic impact is something like $8 billion. And for being a little small law office, I'm really proud to be a part of that. I've got a bunch of clients, but the issue for me is it's the clients, it's the folks out there on the front lines that are making this happen and doing fun and interesting things. And maybe that's actually a good segue to the next portion, because we want to talk about the Brewers Cup and the Great American Beer Festival. Mm-hmm. I've got a note here, and I don't want to answer this question, but I'm going to put it to you, Brooks. What is your favorite North Carolina beer?
Depends on the day. So right now I'm really into all these Oktoberfesty, Marzen style beers. I really love pumpkin stuff. I'm going to admit it. If it has pumpkin or some sort of pumpkin, like Noda's Gorgeous, I love that one as a go-to for me. Old Meck it was OMB's, Mecktoberfest?
Oktoberfest.
That has been fabulous.
No pumpkin in that, though.
No pumpkin.
They're
no,
Reinheitsgebot. They don't do pumpkin.
It's really good. It's just perfect, right? What other one do I really like? Oh, there was like a cinnamon bun one from Sycamore. That was yummy. And then if it's a hot day, because we still have those right now, I've been loving Gizmo's Carolina Pine. That's been really good.
That sounds like some pretty decent selections. I will tell you, I had the good fortune. I was asked to help judge, or volunteered to help judge, the North Carolina Brewers Cup, which the judging took place a few weeks ago. The results were just released a couple of weeks ago. And essentially, if you're not familiar with the North Carolina Brewers Cup, all North Carolina breweries are invited to put beers in for this competition. And for 2 days at Gizmo Brewing, about 20 or 30 of us drank for 3 days solid, trying to judge all these beers. It was both wonderful and miserable. And there was a sister site out in Nashville at White Labs. We were at Gizmo. We had a sister competition out there, a sister site out in Asheville. And between the two sites, I think we had something like 75 people judging, and judged something like 250 odd beers. It was intense. And so a lot of fun, very exciting. The North Carolina Craft Brewers Guild, of course, puts that on. The winners were announced, and then the sort of upper echelon tier, the Brewery of the Year, Beer of the Year, those sort of things, they'll actually be announced at the North Carolina Craft Brewers Guild Conference in Winston-Salem, November 1st through the 4th. So if you've got some time, head out there. Great beer and a lot of good people.
We'll be there.
We will definitely be there. The Brewers Cup, couple of things I want to highlight. Gold for Amber European Lager, a Tobacco Wood Brewing Company, one of our clients, plus there. Gold for American Pale Ale. It almost always has to be Sierra Nevada. It's the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, world-class standard of that beer. They use it as an example on the Cicerone exam, the Beer Judge Certification Program exam, always a good solid bet. And then this one I thought was really interesting, gold for North Carolina homegrown, meaning a large portion, if not all of the ingredients, had to be from North Carolina, was New Sarum Brewing Company, Pete the Farmer. I unfortunately wasn't able to judge any of those. I judged, I think, the English bitters, the European lagers, fruit beers, which was a challenge after the first 10 or 12 beers, and one other category, I don't remember, but had a blast doing it. I want to say, out of the recipients, out of the winners of the North Carolina Brewers Cup, proud to say, our clients brought home a combined 33 medals. That's pretty good. I'm not going to call them out individually. There are lots of them, but super, super proud of them. That warmed my heart, just that I had the opportunity, or we had the opportunity, to represent folks that are not only being hopefully successful in business, but actually making an objectively good product that their peers are recognizing as this is what we should aim for. So very cool. Also was going to mention GABF just came out not long ago. The results of the Great American Beer Festival. A bunch of North Carolina beers medaled in those awards. Again, our clients pulled in a combined total of 4 GABF medals, and if you're not familiar with GABF medals, I mean, it's not quite a Nobel Peace Prize, but it is definitely up there as a career achievement for brewers and folks that are doing this stuff. So again, super proud of those folks that did that and were able to bring home a medal from the GABF. It's not a simple thing. If you're not familiar with it, both the Brewers Cup and GABF, they won't award a medal if they don't think a beer qualifies. So there are years where there's only a silver and bronze awarded, no gold, because they don't think anything qualifies for a gold. So when you win a gold or a silver or a bronze, you know you've earned it. It's not just the best of what's there, it's the best of the best. So that's, again, really proud of these folks.
Is GABF like the Olympics?
That's a really good analogy. Yeah, GABF is open to anybody, and I'll be honest, I have not been to GABF. It is allegedly the largest beer festival in the United States. It is 40 or 50,000 of your closest friends in 2 days in a convention hall in Colorado. But it is one of those bucket list items I'd like to go to at some point. So we talked about those couple of things. We've got just a few minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
As an attorney, I can talk forever about nothing, so I want to be conscious of y'all's time. We got a few minutes left. The two things I have left on my notes, and you can help me with this, Brooks, is common beer law issues and then questions. Have we had any questions come
Yeah,
through at
we've
all?
got someone behind, so I see a no questions. Okay.
That's okay. I mean, Julia, you're actually one of our listeners. Do you have any questions or anything? All right, that's fine. Help me ask. One of the two people watching wanted to ask her specifically.
I will
We're up to 3.
Oh,
You
good.
had 6 at one point.
Oh, that hurts.
We had 6, and then I started talking.
You don't want to know how many of them are us.
Someone asked John, what is your favorite beer right now?
All right. My wife is over here,
His
by the
wife
way,
just
who
said,
just
"Oh,
said Jesus.
Jesus."
Yeah. All right. So I have a stock explanation for this. It's a great question. I appreciate it. My belief is that the best beer has to fit the situation. So I will tell you about everybody here in this office has probably heard this story. One of the best beers I ever had in my life was a Coors Light. And I know that's sacrilege, but stay with me on this. So I had the opportunity to go to Breckenridge, Colorado, and I was into fly fishing at the time, and so the Blue River goes right through downtown Breckenridge. So I packed my fly rod and reel. I schlepped that damn thing on the airplane, and I went out early one morning to go fly fishing. And I stopped by the local A&P or whatever the hell it was and bought a 6-pack of Coors Light. And so at about 10 in the morning, the sun is beating down. Air temperature is probably about 60, 65. The water temperature, I'm standing in water that has got to be maybe 45 degrees. Very cold. 6-pack has been chilling in the water for the last hour. I hadn't caught anything. And just fly fishing, but it was a gorgeous day. I was out by myself. It was quiet in downtown Breckenridge. And I stopped at 10 in the morning and opened a Coors Light and sat on the side of the Blue River. And it was a perfect moment. And I'm not a huge fan of Coors Light, don't get me wrong. But the beer and the moment and where I was all matched. And so that, at the moment, that was my favorite beer. And I feel the same way about, if I'm mowing the lawn in July, I don't want a foreign extra stout from Guinness. But, give me a nice lawnmower beer, something light and crisp, I'm happy. In the fall, yeah, somebody just told me I actually have to answer the question. All right, so coming back around, my favorite beer right now, I love German lagers. And so this is German lager time. We're seeing a lot of Oktoberfest come out. We're seeing still some fest beers come out from, post Oktoberfest, that sort of stuff. So right now, Mechtoberfest is really good. Some of the German Oktoberfest we're still getting that are reasonably fresh are really good. If I had to nail down a North Carolina beer right now, right, let me think. I've actually really been liking the, and it's not apropos of the season, I just happen to be enjoying it right now, is the Linwood Hop on Pop, right, or Hop on Top. Nice IPA, good, solid. I actually, come to think of it, Linwood is one of the ones, I'm not a real big amber ale fan, but that amber ale is really good. The Bill and Ted's Excellent Amber.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Solid beer that made me remember, oh yeah, ambers aren't so bad. So, if I had to choose something right now, I'd be probably in that neighborhood. But I am constantly trying new stuff. We brought a whole bunch of beer back from the North Carolina Brewers Cup. I'm always looking for what's new. And so I typically say, the beer I like best is the one that's in front of me. And by the way, life is too short to drink crappy beer. So, kind of move on if not.
We have another question.
Another question.
How did you get started in the beer business?
How did I get started in the beer business? Well, it was easy. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Work on another.
Well, getting involved in the industry was easier than going to the Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. Because this is now a business expense. It's not an addiction. No. So I have been a home brewer for about 23, 24 years now.
Yeah, you make your own beer.
Yeah.
It's not like you just do this for your job. Like you do it.
Well,
That's
Yeah.
unfortunately, and my wife will tell you, I pretty much eat, live, drink, sleep alcohol in one form or another. I make beer at home, I make wine at home, I work in alcohol for a living, I'm a certified beer judge, I'm taking Cicerone exam. This is kind of what I do, it's kind of who I am. So I started this, I started homebrewing 20 odd years ago, and subsequent to that, I've only been a lawyer for about 12 years or so now. My previous life was as a engineer, and went back to law school because I decided I didn't like engineering, much to the chagrin of my family. But went back to law school, and the issue for me was when I went back to law school, I wanted to do something with my life and my career that I actually wanted to do. Was never really invested in engineering. I love it. I love the concept. I love all the discussion and the science and all that sort of stuff. But I hated going to work every day. I went to law school, and I decided if I'm going to do this, I want to do something with my life that I care about, that is going to be fun. And well, it's a good thing that money wasn't a consideration in that list, because there's no money in this. Ask my law partner. As an alcohol attorney, there's not a ton of money in this. Everybody I know, all of my clients are they're not struggling, but they're all small and independent businesses, and so their priorities are different. Whether they spend $1,500, a couple $1,000s on a trademark registration, that's a big decision. That's a lot of money for some of these folks. So anyway, I wanted to work with folks that I wanted to work with, or that liked what they did. And so I sort of arbitrarily declared myself an alcohol expert and dedicated my business to alcohol back in 2010, 2011, somewhere around there. And for the last probably 6 or 7, maybe 8 years, that's all I've done is alcohol or alcohol-related stuff. So I joke with folks that alcohol attorney was not one of the choices when the guidance counselor came around in high school. They didn't go, hey, you want to work with alcohol for a living, little kid? It's that or the military. I mean, it wasn't that sort of discussion. But it's something that we've made work. And I'll tell anybody that asks, I make a hell of a lot less now than I did as an engineer, but I like my life a hell of a lot more. And that's the part that I really love about this industry, is that the working with the people I get to work with, working with folks who are betting the company, betting their home, betting their future on a craft product. I can't help but get invested in that, and those are the people that I like working with. I think I answered that question?
You
Yeah.
did.
Okay.
I think you got it. Do you have another question?
Anything else? Okay. So we have, we're approaching half an hour or so now.
This
Yeah.
is a bit longer than we planned already.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. 2 things. One, we're going to try and do these more often. We're probably going to try and aim for like once a month. Watch Insta, watch Facebook. We'll go ahead and get you plenty of notice on that stuff. If you have questions, comments, or stuff in between, feel free to email us, reach out, John@beerlawcenter.com, Elizabeth@beerlawcenter.com. Of course, we're watching Insta. You can feel free to comment there. Like and subscribe, follow us. We'd love to engage with you. If you have anything, let us know. And if nothing else, we'll see you
That's
maybe
it.
next month or so.
Cheers.
Thanks, y'all. Cheers.
Cheers.